So we're going to start with introductions. If we could go around, I'll call on you based on what I see on my screen. And let me stop the share for now. For introductions, we should at least be able to see each other. And let's hear your name, where you are joining us from today, and your branch. So we'll start with D. Murphy.
Hi, D. Murphy, calling out of St. Cloud, Minnesota. Pleased to be here today. Thank you.
And D, you're in Jane Addams, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm in Jane Addams branch.
Very good. Thank you. Rita Gonzalez.
Sorry. Rita Gonzalez, currently living in Trinity, North Carolina. I'm part of the Triad branch.
It's great to hear from you, Rita. I thought you were long gone.
No.
I'm glad you're here.
That's the next step. That will be the next step.
But it's good that you're here today. Shantae.
Absolutely.
Shantae McLaughlin.
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Hi, I'm Shantae McLaughlin, the Atlanta Metro branch of Will, and I can barely hear, so I'm on mute. It's kind of noisy where
So
I'm
where
at, but I
are
wanted
you?
to make
You
sure.
said where you were earlier. Where are you?
Oh, I'm in Douglas. There's a couple of people out here running for office. Al Bartel running for as independent for lieutenant governor. It's an event by Street Rumors.
Is this a neighborhood in Atlanta?
No, it's right outside of Atlanta. It's
Okay.
Michael Glassman Jr. running against
We're not going to know
Donzella
those
James.
names, honey. I'm not trying to be
okay.
rude, but we're just doing introductions. Just glad to know where you are, what branch you are, and all that good stuff. Now,
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Ian Zabarte. I probably said it wrong.
It's good. This is Ian Zabarte, Western Bands of the Shoshone Nation. I'm also the secretary of the Native Community Action Council, and we work on nuclear issues. I'm in Las Vegas.
Where are you? Las
Vegas.
Ian?
We don't have.
Oh, you don't have a
Las
branch?
Vegas. We don't
So
have
you're
a
in the
branch.
Jane Addams branch along with D. Murphy. Okay.
Adam?
Dr. Jean.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Jean. I'm with the Fresno branch in California. I actually just left Vegas, folks. Didn't know you were there. So anyway, yes, this is who I am. Yeah.
I see you. Okay. Thanks, Dr. Jean. I hope you had fun in Vegas. You don't sound too sad, so I guess you didn't lose too big.
Celebrating my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday. Well,
Thank you.
okay. Okay, there we go. So, all right. I'm George Friday. I'm in Gastonia, North Carolina in the Southern Piedmont branch. And
hi, thank you, Friday. Same place.
Same branch. All right. We're glad to be here. If somebody would
George, you muted yourself. You are muted.
You, Dee. Thank
You're
you. If somebody could text Teresa, see if she's having a problem getting in. I'm not a good multitasker, so I'm not going to be able to do that. And do, oh, here she comes. God bless. All right, groovy. Now I will. Well, I was going to share the screen, but we want Teresa to introduce herself. So Teresa, we've all introduced ourselves, including Stacy, who's here with me. If you'll give us your name, where you're joining the call from, and your branch.
Teresa Elamine, Fannie Lou Hamer branch in Columbus, Georgia.
George, you've muted yourself again.
Wow, sorry, I was trying to share my screen and talk to y'all. I apologize for muting. I do not know how that happened without my doing it on purpose. For now, oh, what I was saying was we're going to review the BOPA, which is our basis of political agreement. When we formed, last year, in May of 2021, we consensed on the BOPA, the basis of political agreement. And we revisit this to affirm, are we still in agreement with these things? Do we need to add anything? Is there anything to change? I'm going to go over these or have us all have a look at them. I know you can see if you're on a device and you can't read this, let me know. And I'll try to go slowly. And then I want us to look at and revisit our areas of work to consider, are these all the areas of work we want? And have any discussion about those. Any comments or questions about the BOPA and especially the areas of work? Ian, I'd like to invite you to take 3 minutes and give us a little bit of summary of the work that you do and looking at our areas of work, seeing if it fits under one of those or if we need to possibly consider another. You'll need to unmute yourself though, Ian.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, so I work on nuclear issues since 1986. The Shoshone people are in the Great Basin, downwinders from the Nevada nuclear test site where the United States and the United Kingdom have detonated 928 weapons of mass destruction on our land, and the fallout has hurt our land and people, our animals. So we began in the 1990s at investigating the health consequences that we were experiencing from the fallout and looking at our plants and our animals and our lifestyle differences that increased our risk. And we found that it did significantly. We used that to intervene in the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's Atomic Safety Licensing Board on the Yucca Mountain licensing, and we were able to stop those proceedings because the United States does not own our property. Property being a relationship between people with regard to the land being the thing. And that relationship is based on the Treaty of Ruby Valley, and we did not sell our land, we did not cede our land. The Treaty of Ruby Valley is the supreme law of the land, all state laws to the contrary notwithstanding, because the US Constitution, Article 6, Section 2, specifically states that all state laws. Yes. You're mute.
I wasn't asking you a question, Ian. I'm sorry. I was saying you have a minute left. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what I've been working on. That's what we've been working on. Our people are still suffering the health consequences from the fallout. We don't have support from the United States and other people. They've moved 2 million people into Las Vegas, and these people are making an end run for our property and defrauding us of our rights. So, the reason why the Department of Energy and even the U.S. Air Force and the Navy came into our country in secret and cannot prove ownership to any of the land out here. We're talking about 30 million acres, about 40,000 square miles. That is Western Shoshone property by treaty. We don't claim this. We have a treaty with boundaries, which is clear. And the United States has attempted to diminish our rights to something of history. And that's not the fact. Truth is, we're here. We're not going anywhere.
Thanks, Ian. I was letting someone else in. Any questions for Ian? Any thoughts or recommendations or comments as that connects to our areas of work? Let's pause and give Ashley a chance to introduce herself. Ashley, if you'll introduce yourself, let us know where you're calling from and your branch.
Hi, Ashley Carrington, she, they pronouns, Triangle Branch, calling from Cary, North Carolina.
Thank you. So as we look at these areas of work, reflecting on what Ian shared with us, any thoughts, questions, or comments? Okay, and I will put our shared agenda back up. And our next piece of work is to review and update the 3-year strategy chart, which I'll also add, with particular focus on looking at our branches, our allies list, and our areas of work. So what we're looking at now is one of 3 pages on our draft strategy chart. And this corresponds to the period we're in now, January of 2022 to June 2022. And we have our goals here. I don't need to read those to y'all, you can see those. And our branch partners. Please review this. If there's a branch you think we're missing, let us know. In particular, looking at the allies list. Teresa, can you remind me of what you said about the allies list in terms of it being not an objective list, but a subjective list? Teresa, can you unmute and give us your definition of what the individual allies and who gets to be on this allies list? Mercy. I guess Teresa's otherwise occupied. What I remember is this is in many ways an aspirational list of allies. These are people who, through experiences those of us who are members have demonstrated that they are on the path working to be a good, reliable ally. Dee?
Hi, I just want to give a heads up, a word to the wise about Democratic Socialists of America. Dealing with them as I am, they're taking over, in the Green Party. They want your list, they want your information, they will use it and barely give it. So be very, very careful. They do orchestrated takeovers of where they see, something that they can gain. They're top down, hierarchical, and extremely militant. And I just want you to be very careful when you bring them into an organization like this. If they think there's something to be had, they will coordinate takeovers. And it is hard to fight because they bring a lot of young, aggressive, tech-savvy people with them.
Dee, when it comes to our goals, are they allies for the anti-racism transformation of society? Are they allies for
I don't believe they are, simply because of the treatment that those of us who are minorities get in the Green Party from them. They're, obviously trying to get a hold of the Green Party and run their candidates through us, and they will attack anyone, black, white, young, especially older people. They really go after older people. And if they're what they say they are, if they did what they said, they wouldn't be necessarily targeting anyone that they, see that doesn't align with their belief systems.
Okay. So they may need to be removed from this list based on what you're saying. And what I remember about the allies list, and I said earlier, it being more subjective than objective, it's based on the experience those of us who in the Black Caucus have had with these. I was thinking more of the individual allies, not so much organization, but you're sharing an experience that is a valid experience to pay attention to. So we may, as a caucus,
Yeah, they'll use people to get where they want, and they'll be the friendliest people, but then next thing you know, you got a bunch of people targeting you and circling around you, and it's just not a pleasant group. In my experience over the years, and it's been several years
George,
dealing with them.
okay, are
George,
there, yes,
back.
ma'am?
I'm sorry. I did have to step away to take care of some things, but I did listen, and I could hear what Ian was saying, and I'm rather baffled that no one clarified where the indigenous struggle over land and the pollution of land was not clearly identified as something we would support. I suppose it could fall under solidarity with other oppressed peoples of color, but I think it does have its own unique and distinct category because we're often in these meetings with people and they're all identifying the stolen land they're on, but nobody's doing anything about it. So if we could backtrack to the BOPA and find a description that we can use for the struggle that Ian and the is it the Shoshone Nation, Ian? And so we could identify that clearly, like we have immigration justice clearly, which takes in a lot, but the Shoshone are not immigrants. We're on the lands of the many folks, like here, we're on the land of the Muskogee. And so I think that we should find a way to clearly indicate that there, in addition to furthering the discussion in the Racial Justice Committee, subcommittee, where we first heard Ian tell his story. So can we take a moment, George, to revisit that, and maybe Ian could frame how we want to list it? Because one of the questions I asked you, Ian, was, do you have remedies? What are your demands? So what are you asking the US government to do exactly?
Yeah, so because of the fallout, radiation, it's gone everywhere. So definitely universal health care and monitoring, surveillance, registries for people downwind. And, you know, though it's specific to Shoshone, we're the ones who are not getting served. I think everyone needs universal health care because the fallout went across the continent. It went into Canada. It went around the world. So people are suffering the health consequences from the radiation and don't even know where it came from. I'm trying to, you know, become more familiar with your BOPA and anti-racist transformation. What we really need is we have the treaty with the United States. This is supreme law of the land, and silence is the systemic racism on this issue. So people who are not bringing this up, people who are not addressing it, people who are you know, trying to suppress our issues are engaged in systemic racism. And that's what our congressmen and senators here are doing. They're just trying to get more for themselves, more for other people. And 2 million people moved into Las Vegas in the last 30 years. And that's what they're trying to get more for. And we're getting less. We made this nation what it is. Our custom is sharing. We have so much and we continue to share, but we're not leaving. We do need help and we do need support. We need our treaty reservation. We need our treaty reservation so we have a homeland where we can live self-determined, that is safe and clean, and we can develop. That is the law. That is the Treaty of Ruby Valley. So that's the number one thing we need. And what that would do is make legitimate everybody else who's coming to our country and are at this moment a trespasser because they can't prove ownership to their private property any more than the government can prove ownership to the Nevada test site where the weapons testing is taking place, to the $15 billion Yucca Mountain proposed high-level nuclear waste repository that they never thought they didn't own. We proved they couldn't prove ownership.
Hey,
And
Ian, you're
uh,
gonna have to
yeah.
forgive me for interrupting you, but Teresa has her hand up, and I hope we can, looking at these areas of work that you can see on your screen, I hope that we can find, or you can help us find a way to communicate the demands and the remedies that you know about so that we can add it to our areas of work. Teresa?
Well, Dr. Jean asked a good question. So could Ian answer the question that she put in the chat? Because the issue of nuclear waste devastation and other things nuclear, there are lots of groups that are working on that. And Dr. Jean is asking, what other groups are you working with?
We're not working with too many. We've been working with groups specifically working on nuclear waste storage beyond nuclear out of Washington is probably one of the primary groups that I've been working with for a long time. So beyond nuclear, nuclear information resource service, NEARS. We work with state organizations, nonprofits here in the Great Basin in Nevada, and other indigenous organizations such as Poolbog Traditional Native American Healing Center. And we don't really have a lot of support because most people aren't ready to deal with nuclear issues. It's very big, it's very complicated, but I think in the recent weeks since the war started in Ukraine, we see that nuclear power is the biggest threat to humanity. When they start targeting nuclear power plants in war, they are threatening the security of the world. So I am anti-nuclear to the extent I want to be nuclear free, and we need to get there and use these as transition technologies. I'm an electrician working on solar. I'm going to be out in 110-degree heat every day building solar because that's good for my soul. But there's a whole lot more that's happening in that area with batteries that take hydrogen out of the air and make it liquid. And at night, that spits out to turn the turbines. You know, these are important things. I make the transition happen. So that's how I engage in these things. I stopped the nuclear waste repository. I worked with thousands of people, and we all achieved the nuclear weapons testing moratorium and fought to have the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons, which went into force a year ago. And we're trying now, working with other organizations, including WILF, to have the nuclear weapon states lead the nuclear weapon states to to the treaty and sign that treaty and get away from these weapons of mass destruction. We can save our planet and our Mother Earth if we end our obsession with these nuclear weapons.
Okay, Ian. Well, George, this is what I propose. It's unfortunate that Ian was not around when we first began discussing the plowshares equity rises because his work would be a good fit for that. And unfortunate, the deadline passed on February 15th. But my hope is that there will be another round next year when you can pull together an actual proposal. But what I suggest, George, is that Ian comes back to the Racial Justice Subcommittee and we could kind of develop the thoughts around the indigenous land question. Because I know the Lakota have been doing a lot of work about their violated treaties. So it is a bit broader than the issue in Nevada. So I'm thinking that we could draw in some of the other struggles of indigenous nations so that we can have a body of work that fits under the Racial Justice Subcommittee, as we had talked about, George. And then we can come back to the BOPA next month to see if we can frame it in a way that encompasses the broader struggle about stolen land. That's my proposal, George, so that we can move the agenda for now.
Thanks for that proposal. Are other people in agreement with that proposal? Is anyone not in agreement with that proposal? Is there anyone who is unclear? All right, then. So we're in good shape there, yay. I'm now going to go back to our strategy chart, and we were having a conversation about allies. Dee, you let us know that.
Well, George, if I could answer the question, because just in the spirit of full disclosure, this chart was really created by me for the 3-year campaign with support and assistance from George. And it's based on us conducting 2 strategic campaigns. One is a membership drive to bring in 300 new members over the next 3 years by December of 2024. So it really involves 100 members a year. Now the allies list is basically my asking other members of the Black Liberation Caucus if they had any objections to people on the list. The list is made up of people who are members of European descent, US members of European descent, who have, in my opinion, clearly identified themselves as allies. And some people who are represented here in the different branches agree, like the Southern Piedmont branch. Samantha Turner is from that branch. Susan Smith is someone I've communicated with from the Pittsburgh branch, and she's actively working to recruit women of color, as is Tina Shelton from the Greater Philadelphia branch, Margot Schulter, who's in the Sacramento branch, has been consistently participating in the Advancing Human Rights Committees. Mary Sanderson is in the Madison branch, and I've spoken with her. Kim Porter is actually on the board of SARN. Nancy Price is a longtime Earth and Democracy person that George Friday knows, and I also know. Candace Perry is in the Cape Cod branch, and she's long recognized as a reliable ally in that region of the country. Robin Lloyd is in the Burlington, Vermont branch, and likewise, Orly describes herself as an Israeli Jew who is totally committed to fighting white supremacy and racism and supports the Palestinians. And so I asked that she be added to the list. Emily Keel, who's in the Triangle branch, Sue Hilton, who's in the Humboldt branch, Alan Haber, who's in the Ann Arbor Ypsilanti branch, and Jennifer Lee Disney is also on the board of SARN, and she's working to build a branch in the Rock Hill, Fort Mill, South Carolina area. And so those are the people and what I know about their credentials. Some people have been eliminated from the list based on them showing that they were unreliable in some way. People who I had added that I asked to be removed, and they will remain nameless for now. But it is up to any member in the Black Liberation Caucus who have identified people of European descent who are committed to the cause of anti-racism. And so that's how the allies list came together. So it is kind of aspirational because most of the allies on the list think that they are not ready yet. And they feel that they have a lot more work to do with themselves, which is a very good thing to hear from them because it is kind of an aspirational list in terms of the individuals. And on the organization allies, it's based on relationships, again, that George and I have primarily, but other folks can add them. I know that Dee has a kind of anti-socialist bent, and so it kind of comes off a little bit as kind of red baiting, but I'm a member of DSA, and there are several WILF members who are also DSA members. And DSA is also a connection that Bernie Sanders has in terms of claiming democratic socialism. So I just wanted to just say, I disagree with Dee. She has her personal experiences, but my personal experiences with socialists have been positive over quite a few years. So, George, is there anything else on the list of things that we need to discuss? I think the activities.
Yes, the activities. We've got question though and a raised hand. The question from Jean that's in the chat, asking if we are not going to be working with BIPOC. Well, absolutely we are. That's part of our areas of work, part of our definition as the Black Liberation Caucus is open to all oppressed communities and all people of color, Indigenous folks, and we're happy to make sure we're doing the work to pay attention to those communities as well. We need to look at the activities here on the chart, but Ashley, you had a question.
Yes, so a few weeks back at our meeting for Triangle Branch, I was asked to clarify things in terms of what it meant to be a branch partner. I was asked by some members of Triangle Branch, what that meant and what that actually entailed. My summation to them was pretty much be anti-racist and don't be problematic in a short sense. But in a broader sense, is there anything that we can offer branches in terms of specific goals or things that they can be actively doing that I can pass on? Or is that something that's still being formed through the art curriculum? I just need a little bit of clarity so I know what to tell them. Okay,
Thanks,
and thank you.
Ashley. And I inadvertently muted you, Teresa, when I was trying to move y'all's pictures out of the way of the chart. I don't know if you could tell what I was doing. I'm sorry if it was distracting. Ashley, one of the things in our goals, yes, and you and I talked about it, is developing anti-racism transformation materials that the branch levels can then engage in and participate in to build their skills around anti-racism transformation. prepare them to support leadership of BIPOC folk in their branches and, not be so racist. So yes, and that is in development. And thank you, Ashley Carrington, for agreeing to be one of the human beings who will help make that happen.
I'm glad Ashley asked the question because there are two areas of work in the strategic 3-year campaign. That is developing the anti-racism training materials in an artful way, which is why it's so important, Ashley, with your creative talent, that you'll be working with George. But I've also spoken with Nikki, who was doing the inside, outside branch stuff. She quit doing that for Will. She's still doing the social media work, and she's being paid fairly for that. But she's doing some other work that I think would fit well with her joining the art team. My vision of the art team, and I'm gonna put a little pressure on Dr. Jean because Dr. Jean has developed a body of work that she's been doing for some time successfully with the Fresno branch. So George, I think this is a good time to talk about how the team of 5 people has been proposed because it would be great to have a team of 5 people. If John Saboldo could join the team, Ashley, and I think you're in touch with him. I did tell Nikki that George would contact her, and since Dr. Jean is on the call, maybe she can say a little about the materials she's been using with the Fresno branch on a regular basis. Over.
Dr. Jean's hand is up. Go ahead, Dr. Jean.
Yes, okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm driving, so if you hear any of the noise in the background, that's what it is. So in order for me to answer the question or have the conversation, I have to get a question answered first. Well, okay, let me back into it this way. What motivated me to narrow in on the branch that I'm a member of and to do this anti-racist work was the listings of or the strategies that the BLC had put out. Amongst all the areas was the area about racial, I'm going to just use the term racial harmony. Needed to challenge our local branches to develop more people of color in there, specifically Black people, African-American people. I came into the BLC under that understanding in my mind. And so I thought to myself, after being a member for the many years that I have, it was a good question that Teresa posed. Why is it that you guys don't have more Black people in the organization? Are you not doing any outreach? What are some of the reasons? And so with that challenge, I took that back to my branch and said, we have had some Black folks in, but do we really do an intentional outreach to form those partnerships? So now in saying that, that is what motivated me to come up with something other than just reading books on white agility or whatever other books are out there that we're not just reading, but we're putting into practice what we're reading. And so my taking the lead on that, being the woman of color, the Black woman, saying that we need to have more of this, we need to sensitize our allies so that when we bring more Black people into the organization, they won't feel isolated or ignored or be even feeling that they're invisible. Okay, here's my point that I'm going to make now. When I heard that we had a Black Liberation Caucus, I don't know why I thought that it was a group to support one another. So if we had Blacks in the, wherever the branches were, we had a time that we could come together and that we could strengthen one another and also come up with these strategic plans. So it was a group that was designed for Black folks or people who identified as Black folks. That's what I thought it was. It seems to me that we're kind of talking about, it's not just for Black people now, but kind of the whosoever will join us, including white folks, to join BLC. So I'm left with a question saying, what are we doing? Are we trying to start another organization? Maybe don't call it WOLF, but are we coming in through the back door and forming a different kind of an organization? So I know that I'm presenting something that's pretty heavy duty, and I hope I can hear the answer while I'm on the freeway, but I don't know what our bottom line is. We've got some great layouts of strategies to do. And yes, I think there needs to be a support system for Black women, as there will be down the road, I'm sure, for our Hispanic sisters and our other groups that may feel isolated or marginalized. But now I'm hearing that we are also welcoming white people to the Black Liberation Caucus. I may have missed that meeting, or maybe I didn't quite understand it, but I'm just putting it out there for what it's worth, because it, we're as strong as the weakest link. So if any of us have a misunderstanding, namely myself or others, then I want to know that, because I can't join in something that I don't, I can't help to build what that is, because I'm building it on my misunderstanding, maybe not the rest of you. But I'm
hear you,
wondering, why
Dr.
do we have
Jean.
white people in there now? So help me
We
to understand
are
that.
not having people of European descent meet the Black Liberation Caucus. We do, however, want to do at other branches what you've taken on doing at your branch, and that is to get the white members of the branch out of their practice of white supremacy, unconscious or not, and prepare them to have more BIPOC women and members. Teresa has her hand up. Go ahead, Teresa.
Well, that is a misunderstanding, Dr. Jean. The question that we settled last week is that the Black Liberation Caucus, while obviously mostly led by Black members, that we were open to Indigenous as well as other people of color who identified themselves as not white. One of the things I've learned, Dr. Jean, is that ending white supremacy requires white allies. And so for 25 years, the Southern Anti-Racism Network has been working with allies. And over the years, we have designated some as reliable and some as unreliable. And at our major anniversaries, like our 5th year, 10-year, and 20-year anniversary, we gave out awards we call the Reliable Ally Award. And that's people who have been consistent in speaking out against white supremacy. So no, this caucus is exactly what it says. It is a caucus of people who are not white. So there's no effort to bring people of European descent into this caucus. However, most of us are in branches that include white people. And in some cases, some of us are the only Black people in the branches where we are. The Fannie New Hamer branch has an opposite difficulty. We have every person is a Black woman except for 2 people. And we're looking to create more diversity and inclusion of sisters of European descent, because here in Columbus, there are some reliable allies that we'd like to see join to help with the white supremacy in Muskogee County. So in your branch, I think there are very few people of color in Fresno. And what I was struck by, Jean, is hearing the low percentage of Black people demographically in the Central Valley, Fresno area. I had no idea the numbers were so low, but that's the struggle that we have. There's no reason for the Triangle branch to be as white as it is with 3 or 4 people of color, because in the Triangle area of North Carolina, it's lots of Black people. So that's kind of how we're looking at it, Jean. How can the branches that have been historically all white, how can they integrate? How can they practice diversity, equity, and inclusion? So no, the Black Liberation Caucus is not trying to create an opposition group to WILF. We are WILF members who recognize that WILF needs to transform itself to be anti-racist. And the work that you were doing before the Black Liberation Caucus started, Jean, you've been working with your branch on this work for longer than the past year. I thought that was my understanding. How did I get that wrong, Jean?
No, we have been doing that sort of work, as you mentioned, but we started doing this under the umbrella of the beloved community. We found that that was a safe place to build the solidarity and also build connections with people that may not feel comfortable fitting into the traditional WILF. So the beloved community gave us that springboard. And then since the George Floyd situation, where everyone's running around saying Black Lives Matters, we posed the question to our branch. You are saying that you believe in Black Lives Matters. You've got the stickers, you've got them in your places of visibility, but what does that mean exactly when you hear that word? And so that's where the teaching started, so that they would all be on the same page, so that they're not saying Black Lives Matters because all lives matter. That is one piece of it. But we have to understand what Black lives truly matters. And that's why we started doing the vigilante work. We personally don't see the full vision that some of the folks in BLC sees, even yourself, Sister Teresa, that WILF is a white supremacy group. We hold the position that WILF is a white privilege group. And because of that, we need them to challenge their privileges, in that there could be some white supremacy stuff going on, but we prefer to look at it from, we have no reason to believe in our local branch that there is white supremacy in our branch. There is a lot of white privilege, even in the leadership of WILF, but we have not grasped the idea that it's a white supremacy, and we don't want to just put that label on because it's a touchy fuzzy label. So that's kind of where we're at, and us building in our branch to have more visibility of people of color, because they say Black Lives Matters, then we need more Black people in our branch. Practice what you preach is the approach that we're taking. So I'm not even sure, are we on the same page, or will we have the same outcome measurements, or are we maybe doing it a little bit different?
Dr. Jean, Teresa, this is a conversation y'all may want to have offline. Because y'all have gone.
George, it's important. I'm sorry, George, but that rigidity about time, we have generally until about 5:30 for the meetings, but this is a major area of work that's been neglected for 3 months, George. So I do want to get clarity so that Jean understands that this is work that's developing. White supremacy is a system of oppression, and it works automatically, Jean. And the way it shows itself, when you look at the Philadelphia branch, all the leadership is white. When you look at the Pittsburgh branch, the Triangle branch, even the Detroit branch, all the leadership is white. And Sacramento, San Francisco, you could go all the way down the line. That is what white supremacy looks like, when everybody at the top is white and there are few people of color. Even in the expression of the national board, there are now 2 people of color on the national board, Shilpa and Philip Cole. It's a board that should have 12 members, but the board, in my opinion, has been deliberately kept small to maintain the culture of white supremacy. It's an uncomfortable word, but people need to be uncomfortable in order to change. And so it is a clear description of something that is a system of oppression. It is not personal, but people who are engaged in perpetuating the system are at the top of wealth. And that's a fact which should not be in dispute.
Thanks, Teresa. So hopefully we can look at these areas of work. No, I'm sorry, not areas of work, activities to the results of our work. I will have to stop the screen to get a link to share with y'all briefly, but these are our activities to reach our goals for the period that we're in now. Some of them have passed, but I'm keeping them on here for institutional reasons, so we'll know. And we've got our meeting today, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time. And I'm going to stop the share, as I said, so I can get the link for y'all, which I've bookmarked. The international will have a meeting that is planned to focus on the Constitution. Okay.
George, are you sure about that?
I
Because
am. I'm going to pull up the link for y'all right now.
yeah, because the only link I saw was 7 a.m. Zurich time, which would be 2 a.m. Eastern time and 11 p.m. Pacific time. That's the only link I saw. I didn't see anything about 10 a.m. Eastern.
All righty. Let's explore together. Share the screen. Right. Here we go. And I saved this. I'll put the link in the chat because I think these are updated, these dates. Here we go. March 28th. This one is way early. If you see the time zone here, this is at 5 in Zurich, I guess, 5 to 6:30. I don't know what UTC is. I know that the second one that is at 1400 UTC is, if y'all can see when I convert it to my time, is, I just put in Charlotte, there it is, 10 a.m., Monday, 10 a.m. So that's how I figured that out. Can't hit the back button. Let's see if I can do it. Right. So this link here goes to a calendar that I believe stays updated. But tomorrow morning, if y'all want to make this, you can read here what the event is about. The Constitutional Committee. And under the Constitutional Committee, unless I'm remembering wrong, I'm sure Teresa will correct me if I have it wrong. When we talked to the international folks, and Madeline in particular, said, this is the setting to talk about a conflict resolution process. Am I right in that, Teresa?
Yes, but it's also the setting to talk about member rights. Part of what some of the European sections, Australia and other places were complaining about is a reference to members as volunteers, as if we had no democratic rights to decide how WILF as an organization should be run. So I expect this to be a very rich conversation that covers a lot of issues, including dues and who gets funding. And so it's going to be a rich conversation that goes beyond conflict resolution, but it's going to be all of the basic issues of democratic rights. So
Thanks.
you don't want to miss it. I'm actually going to be on the one at 2 a.m., which hopefully they'll say that there's a 10 a.m. one. But George, I think you should keep track of time now because giving a link for this and asking people what they want to accomplish is what the agenda item was. So if we could move the agenda, that would be great.
You do have to register for that Zoom tomorrow morning, the 28th here. So yes, when it comes to the Constitution, bylaws, distinctions from membership that Teresa was talking about, what would be the outcome we want as a caucus? Any comments or thoughts on that?
Well, I think we have to focus in on the US section because our bylaws can be amended at different times. And right now, there's some real problems associated with dues. And lots of people are saying that they don't feel that people who can't afford dues should have to pay them. And I think we have quite a few allies. What's interesting is that the US section under Jan Quarterman has paid the dues of the Mexico section, our sisters to the South. So I'm thinking at some point, and I'll bring it up at the board meeting on Tuesday, that Black women and other women of color are owed reparations from WILF for excluding us for nearly a century, and that they should forgive the dues for anyone who can't afford it. SARN has been paying hundreds of dollars for dues for women who can't afford it, but we're a small organization, and I think the US section should pay dues for people we identify who can't afford it. That's what I think should happen constitutionally. And I think because part of our dues go to the international, I think that somehow in the Constitution of the international, that should be made clear that paying dues should not be an obstacle to membership in WILF at any level. Over.
Is that something that we could make as a proposal for the international and the board meeting, that dues should not be an obstacle to anyone being a member? As a caucus, I'm asking.
Well, I think more discussion is needed, George. This is not a decision that can happen today. The Wolf International Congress is not until July. So we do have several months to discuss it. And since I'm just bringing it up today and it's not actually on the agenda, I will propose is table to the next meeting at the end of April, where I believe Ashley is facilitating. If she would be willing to add it to the April agenda, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Maybe my tone wasn't right or the inflection in my voice. I was trying to frame that as a question for comment or discussion, but tabling it till next month works too. So another thing for us to think about, what do we want to accomplish? What do we want to get out of it? Is the board meeting Tuesday at 8 Eastern and 5 on the West Coast. You have to send an email. I think I put this in the agenda to secretary at WILF US to get the link and information for the board meeting. A summary of the board meeting though, an overview. Now I know you've said a lot today, Teresa, and I know you may be tired of talking and y'all may be tired of hearing my voice or Teresa's voice, but if you would, Teresa, give a brief summary of the process of the board meeting for people that may not have been to one.
We have a victory over the months since the Black Liberation Caucus has existed. The board meetings used to be set up so that if you weren't on the board, you had no right to speak during the actual board meeting. You could only speak at the end of the board meeting, and you would be given 2 minutes to speak. Well, in addition to the 2 minutes to speak on anything you want to speak about at the end of the board meeting, you can speak on 1 or 2 items on the actual board agenda. And I believe you're given 1 minute per item, or if you want to use both of your 2 minutes to speak on 1 item, you could do that if you're a guest and not actually on the board. So the secretary, Diane Blay, she is very good about making sure that you have the information to join the Zoom meeting. So if you want to be at the board meeting, which happens every other month, so the next board meeting won't be until May. So if you want to be at this board meeting on Tuesday, March 29th, board meetings are always the last Tuesday of the month. So March 29th, you need to send that email today, really, to secretary@wilfus.org if you think you can make the board meeting, because the more of us that are there from the Black Liberation Caucus, the more our political weight.
This is Shantae. I was going to say the last time that you all advocated for us to be at the meeting, I sent them more than one email and they never sent me a link.
Well, that's odd. Did you send it to secretary@WILF US? Because sometimes I made the mistake and I put the US part. And if you don't put wilfus.org, it won't get to the right person.
Okay, it may have been something I did. I'll double check to confirm. I thought that I just copied and pasted from what you all posted, but nothing came back to me and I never received a link. So I don't know if I have availability that day, but I'll make time just to be there, even if I'm off camera and I'm mute, just, for the numbers, but they never received, they never sent me a Zoom link the last time.
Well, what was really important at the January board meeting, a major victory, they had removed me from the branches list representing the Fannie Lou Hamer branch, and Shilpa, the only woman of color on the branch, asked for that vote to be reconsidered, and everybody voted for me to be added back except Diane Blay. So it's important to attend the meetings, especially when we have issues, because the board members do listen to what we have to say. So I hope you can get the link this time, Shante.
If you don't have it by midday, Shante, on Tuesday, send me a text. Our next agenda item is to hear a proposal about a proposed membership drive. I'm going back to the BOPA so you can see the exact dates as Teresa describes the proposal.
Well, thank you, George. This is, as many of you have noticed, the Black Liberation Caucus is basically staffing all of the subcommittees of the Advancing Human Rights Issue Committee. I'm the convener over ending mass incarceration and the death penalty, but also the UN Decade and Reparations Subcommittee. So I'm doing a tour that will involve, hopefully, the Philly branch and the Boston branch. It's a 6-city tour starting in DC on June 17th. Small groups of like 25 to 30 people with the strategic objective of rebuilding the DC branch of WILF. There used to be a really strong branch of WILF in DC and it went away. So we're trying to rebuild that with the support of Marion Ungaro, who is a Black WILF member in DC. And then the next stop, Baltimore, where we have at least 1 or 2 members of WILF. So it may be a DC Baltimore branch that we start up. And then the stop on June 19th, Juneteenth, would be the Philadelphia branch. And several members of the Philadelphia branch have written me to say that they want to support it. We're just trying to find a venue, but the Philadelphia stop seems to be a pretty sure thing. And then a stop in New York City, where a branch is in formation, and a stop in my old stomping grounds of Providence, Rhode Island, where I know we have a branch that's in formation there. And then the final stop will be the Boston branch. And the idea is to get branches to commit to passing resolutions at their city councils in support of reparations for descendants of enslaved Africans. And those reparations resolutions are being passed around the country. And we're trying to see how many branches we can get to connect with other organizations in their cities to pass the resolutions before the end of the UN decade for people of African descent. And the decade ends December of 2024. So people have a little less than 2 years to get it done. So that's a proposal that's being worked primarily through the UN Decade Reparations Subcommittee. So I'm moving the proposal, and when I have all of the dates and venues lined up, which I hope will be done by the end of April, I'll give an update at next month's meeting.
Thanks so much, Teresa. That is going to be quite a trip. So I could be wrong here, and my apologies if I am, but I don't know if at our February meeting if we had shared any news about the New York member, Jennifer Hyman. Oh, Dee, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Hi, I mean, I could wait till announcements too, if you want to continue. I just wanted to add some food for thought to the members here regarding what the board is doing. And I don't know if you want me to, as far as the racial equity thing, what they're doing. I don't know if you want me to add that in here.
Oh, we
Or-
are at announcements now. Go ahead. You've got 3 minutes.
Okay, so sorry, I'm a little overworked and too stressed out to be pretty for camera, but and I don't wear wigs, so I gotta do my cap. But anyway, the board is, a couple of members of the board have approached me. They're forming kind of like a peacekeeping team to help with internal disputes. And I don't know how that lies in with the plans of the Black Liberation Caucus. I tend to agree with Dr. King, Dr. Jean Kennedy about, kind of the approach, being probably a little less, a little different. But they are forming their own, like, kind of peacekeeping kind of teams. And I was asked if I would be able to help. I think they're looking for people that can see both sides of the issue, the issues that are present, and can communicate that. As you know, I have had no problems with backing down people when they approach me in a racist fashion. So I was really surprised that they even asked me to join with this. But by the same token, I've also spoken out against antagonizing those that could be potential allies, calling them racist at every turn. So I just wanted you to be aware that that is also being formed, because I know that there is a, that I'm hearing here that there's an approach. And I don't know if they should be merged, or if you'll hear about it on the board, or if you want to consider how to get different people on from the Black Liberation Caucus onto the team that's being formed to do that. Thank you. Over.
Thanks, Dee. Yeah, many blessings and caution to you there. Teresa, you had your hand up. 3 minutes.
Well, I think it's obvious why they approach Dee. Dee has clearly indicated antagonism towards the Advancing Human Rights Issue Committee, and I think it's been seen as being directed towards me. So I'm not surprised that they approached her. But I would like to announce the former president of WILF, Mary Harrison Hanson, because I believe in building authentic relationships one-on-one, which is why that list of allies is a list of allies that I created based on my personal relationships with people. So Mary Harrison Hanson and I will be talking in a few minutes. She's trying to help me understand a little bit of the history and the antagonisms that went on when she was president from 2014 until 2019, which also is the same period that Melissa Torres was under attack. And Melissa has identified Mary as a problem during that period. So Mary has graciously agreed to have a conversation with me this evening. And I will certainly share the results at the next BLC meeting. Over.
Thanks, Teresa. I'm a little bit in awe of your ability to talk to people in the way that you do. I don't have that skill. People just get on my nerves too much. Not y'all, but in general, I love humanity, individuals, not so much. I got off camera for my announcement and my little 3 minutes. There are two very selfish announcements. One, on April 4th, Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, please go to the North Carolina Poor People's Campaign Facebook page. We will be doing a reading of Martin Luther King's Beyond Vietnam, and United for Peace and Justice many years ago started the tradition of doing this every year. And for some places or some members who are part of UFPJ, they've done it for nearly 20 years. For us, this will be our second year in North Carolina, and we've got some great readers, including a great minister here in the state, and a person who's been in prison for trying to stop nuclear weapons. The Plowshares, Patrick O'Neill's one of the readers. It's going to be really, really great. So that's April 4th, 6 p.m. Eastern, North Carolina Pure People's Campaign Facebook page. And the other thing, your thoughts and prayers right now, because the UNC Tar Heels are playing in the the Sweet 16, and they could go down because, they pushed their luck. So hopefully that luck will last a little bit longer. Thank you for indulging my selfishness. So we're done pretty much. Are there any thoughts, questions, comments before we close?
George, I wish you would pay attention to what Ian put in the chat, because I had asked him that question about remedies. But I think it's going to be important to kind of support Ian in his frustration. But he did put something very substantive in the chat. So I think that if we could have a conversation later about how we can advance that, even at the national board level meeting on Tuesday night. I think people need to know what's going on with Ian and the indigenous land in Nevada. I'm not sure what branch is in Nevada or if there is a branch, but maybe we can find out how Ian can be better supported. I think he's a bit frustrated with the lack of support. But I want us to be real clear with Ian that we fully support him. And I think you're in touch with him, George. And so if we can try to talk with him a little bit more about how to kind of advance his cause inside of Will and what committee, issue committee might be useful, like Earth and Democracy with Nancy Price, but just to find different ways we could support Ian.
That's very important. When I'm facilitating, I can't really read and follow the chat. And once the chat, I can only read the most recent chat. The scrolling thing just doesn't work for me somehow, or on my laptop. I lose them. So I'll be able to look at that afterwards. We'll have the recording available, and I'll send that to everyone who got the information. The whole Black Caucus will get the recording. If you want the chat, email me back. Because our email list is, not blind copied to people, Ian's email is on that list. I think it begins with IZ. What I'm remembering is there's a Z in his email address. So you can find that and email Ian yourself, anybody here. Any other announcements? Any other comments?
Is Ashley still here?
Yes, I see Ashley.
Yeah, because the next meeting is April 24th, and I believe Triangle is facilitating. So Ashley and Mary, I think, are both here today.
Yes. Thumbs up from Ashley, and I know Mary White is here too. Great, thanks so much. So we'll see y'all April 24th. All calls start at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Have a great month. Thanks so much for coming. Bye. Bye. Oh,
Bye-bye.